Hi everyone, if you've been following this channel for a while, you'll probably know that my theory about the origin of King Arthur's European conquest is that it derives from distorted accounts of the historical conquest of much of the Western Roman Empire by Androgathius, the cavalry commander of Magnus Maximus. Now, an interesting piece of evidence for this is actually found in the Welsh Triads. In the Welsh Triads, we find an interesting statement about Ellen. So it mentions that there were 3 Ellens who left Britain. Now, one of the Ellens is described as being the sister of Arthur, and she's specifically described as going with Arthur when he went to fight Frollo on the continent. So Frollo is described, or he's presented by Geoffrey of Monmouth as being the Roman ruler of Gaul, when Arthur went to invade that area and Arthur defeated Frollo. So in the Welsh Triads, a reference is made to this event, this supposed legendary European conquest of Arthur's. And Ellen is described as going with Arthur. Now in this triad, it specifically says that Ellen went with Arthur, but she did not return to Britain. Now that's an interesting statement because we find exactly the same thing said about a different Ellen. Which one? Well, it's Ellen, the legendary wife of Magnus Maximus. There are actually 2 of the Welsh Triads, 2 different triads, which refer to Ellen, the wife of Magnus Maximus, as leaving Britain on Magnus Maximus's conquest and never returning. Now, isn't that interesting? As far as I'm aware, it's only these 2 Ellens in all of the medieval Welsh records. It's only these 2 Ellens who are described as leaving Britain and never returning. Isn't it a bit of a coincidence that you'd find exactly the same tradition about 2 people with exactly the same name? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I think that's quite convincing evidence that actually it's referring to the same historical event. These 2 traditions aren't 2 independent traditions that just so coincidentally happen to be identical, but they actually derive from the same original tradition, from the same historical event. So I would use this as quite strong evidence that the account of Arthur invading Europe comes from the historical events involved in Androgathius and Magnus Maximus leaving Britain and going to the continent and invading and conquering much of the Western Roman Empire. I think that is clearly the historical basis for Arthur's legendary European conquest.